Welcome to San Joaquin College of Law Today, a show dedicated to issues and events within the law school which are of general interest as well. SJCL Today is produced by San Joaquin College of Law, a nonprofit law school in Clovis, founded in 1969 to provide quality legal education. Over 88% of its graduates have passed the California bar examination. More than a quarter of the practicing lawyers in the Fresno area are San Joaquin College of Law graduates. Our program this time features a recent Law School 101 gathering. These monthly events are open to members of the public who are considering becoming attorneys. The first part is led by a faculty member or alumni, followed by a panel of current students speaking about their law school experiences. This Law School 101 session is led by Professor Justin Atkinson, Dean of Academic Affairs, and SJCL librarian Professor Alicia Rest.
Why are you here? Does anyone want to tell me why you're here? What is it that drew you here tonight? Anybody? Yeah.
Preferably criminal law. Criminal law is one of the things that I've seen, and there's a lot of individuals, especially in the Central Valley, as you guys mentioned, that are of an indigenous background that can't afford proper representation or just don't know what their rights are if they do get involved with the legal system. And it's one of those things to where it's like they need proper representation, and by attending a law school or by following law, you'd be able to help those that aren't aware of the rights that everyone has.
Anybody else? Why are you here? Yeah.
I'm here to expand on the contractual law. So take some of your classes.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right. Yes, please.
I was originally pre-med in my schooling, but as you said, I was in mock trial through high school, and that it was always between law school and med school for me. And there was a turning point in my med school kind of classes where I realized it wasn't for me, and that I really did enjoy, like, we practiced in this law school for mock trial, and we went to state and did all that, and I just knew that that was up my alley and something I would be probably good at here.
Excellent. Fantastic. Anybody else want to share kind of your experience of what led you to this law forum? Yeah, please.
I'm here to learn more about the law surrounding my business and how I can represent and protect myself.
And these are great examples because it just tells you about the breadth of the law, kind of what you can do with a law degree. There's all kinds of things you can do. One thing that I found when I was, in literature and I was studying human rights and things, I always thought to myself, there's got to be a way that I can help. Where can I get the tools to be able to help to change? And for me, that again led me to law. This would give me the tools that I could use to then kind of help people. The tools that I could use to help my own business, for example. So there's various things you can do with it. You're obviously interested, so you're here. And I think that those interests can be very diverse. It doesn't have to be about saving people, human rights. It can be about expanding a business. It can be about all kinds of things. So there's whatever it is that led you here. I hope that we can answer your questions. I would guess that you come to law school because you want to be employed after law school. Would that be correct? I got to tell you that law schools recently have gotten a lot of bad press because in many places, recent law grads are not getting jobs. If you live in San Francisco, if you live in Los Angeles, in various big cities, there's law school on top of law school on top of law school, and you're fighting for a finite number of jobs. I'm happy to say that here in the Central Valley, we haven't seen that. 94% of the class of 2014 who were admitted to the bar have gotten jobs. They're working as attorneys. So there are jobs here in the Central Valley. We kind of buck the trend with regard to the bad press, and that's because we are the only game in town. So looking for employment, there is employment. I can stand right here and tell you that today there is employment for attorneys here in the Central Valley.
And so, just playing off of the fact that we're the only game in town and kind of what that means. So, you want to do good work and you want to help people, but at the same time, it's important that you're compensated for that work, right? We all have mortgages, we all have lives that we need to leave. So in this geographic region, the salary range for attorneys is between $60,000 to $100,000 roughly, for the starting out. In other areas, it can, be a higher salary range, but like Dean Atkinson just explained, those areas are a lot more competitive and more impacted, and we just aren't having that experience here. I can tell you from personal experience, it was very easy for me to transition from my experience here right into a job, and I was busier than I could think of, and while I was there, I was watching my firm expand in front of my eyes because we were so busy, we couldn't keep up with the work. So the law here, you're employable. But being the only game in town, you have to think about what we have here, right? So we have the Fresno County Superior Court, the 5th District Court of Appeals, a federal district court. In the surrounding communities, we have the Kings County Superior Court, the Tulare County Superior Court, the Madera County Superior Court. On top of that, you have all of the different public employment that's available, be it through DA's office, county council, many different types of public work. And then there's private jobs as well for private firms. So there's a lot of job opportunities. And when those people go looking for interns, they look here. When those people look for employees, they look here because they know that the quality of the graduates that we turn out is a high quality graduate. And there's so many of our grads now in the workforce as judges, as owners of firms, in all of the different government agencies, that they know that our grads are employable. And so the other thing you have to think about is that if you're looking for those internships, those judicial externships, if you're in LA, if you're in San Francisco, that's highly competitive. Here, it's a completely different story. Our grads get those internships. The judges have relationships with our grads and with our students. And so it's important to know that. And that's one of the advantages of going to school here. And the networking isn't only about getting a job, but a lot of our graduates, they decide to open their own firms, hang their own shingle. And the relationships that you develop at this school will serve you once you leave, because if you have an issue that you don't know how to deal with, or you are a sole proprietor and you need somebody to cover your calendar, your court calendar one day, and you know other grads, it's a phone call away, those relationships that you made while you were here. And so that's part of the practice that's part of going to school here, and it's a wonderful part of going to school here. So
thank you very much. So any questions so far? Yeah.
What is the percentage of your graduates that pass the bar?
Graduating class of the last 5 years, 83% of those people have passed the bar exam. Our first year bar passage rate ranges from 54% to 65%, and that's just when you first time take the bar. Within 5 years, though, 83% of those students eventually pass the bar exam. Throughout the history of our law school, since 1974, 84% of our students have passed the bar exam. So we're going to get you to pass the bar exam. We're going to try our best, right? And that kind of leads me into, go ahead. Yeah.
What would you guys, looking at that, what would you guys attribute that to?
From the minute you get here, we want to train you to be lawyers, of course, but we also want to train you to get you past the bar exam. And I think our small classes, I think your access to faculty is a big deal. I mean, I teach contracts. You have access to me. Students for me are number one. I have all kinds of administrative duties. I'm writing all kinds of reports for accreditation agencies. But if a student comes to my office, they take precedence over everything. You can ask current students about that, and they will tell you that. We don't have a school without you, and if you're not successful, we don't have a school. So we have to make you successful, and we're going to do all we can to make you successful. And that leads me into what is the program like? What's a law program like? And I think those that have gone to university recently, I think undergraduate, you would tell me if this is kind of what your day is like. You go and you sit in class, you have a PowerPoint presentation, you memorize the PowerPoint presentation or the study guide, and you spit it back out at the professor for the test. Is that pretty accurate? Okay. It's much different in law school. So the minute you start here, we are training you to be a lawyer. The things you learn, the study habits you have, the research you do, the briefing of cases, you are practicing law from day one here.
So there's different components that we provide, and Professor Atkinson went over some of those, but one of the ideas is that you will learn the substantive law here and the theoretical ideas behind the law. So what does that mean? That means the letter of the law. What does the law say? What is it? And then the theoretical ideas. What are the policies behind the law? How did they come into place? Why are they there? Okay? That's one component of learning the law. Another very important component of learning the law that most people outside of law school don't exactly understand is that really what you're doing is you're learning an analytical framework on how to solve these legal problems. And it's akin to learning another language, but adding a whole nother element to that, right? So for example, did you know that you can legally steal somebody else's property? Anybody know that? And what do you call that? Well, eminent domain is one way. That's when the government's illegally taking our property, right? Yeah. Which is happening a lot with the high-speed rail and different things that are going on. And what were you going to say? Adverse possession. I'm sure some of you have heard of adverse possession, right? So you think of adverse possession, you think, oh, that means if you use somebody else's property for a while, you can acquire that property. But actually, there's a very specific framework of elements that you have to meet in order to be successful in adverse possession, okay? And so that would be a hostile, active, continuous, exclusive, and open and notorious use of the land, right? So what does that mean, okay? And I always remember it as haseo. That's what I always called it when I was in school, so I could remember it, right? You know, sometimes you use little mechanisms so you can remember it. And I'm gonna add to that paying taxes, which isn't the rule in every state, but it is in California. You have to pay taxes on the property as well. So again, you're getting into these language issues. What does hostile mean? Does it mean that you go in and you tell the person, hey, get off this land, it's my land? In some states. But in California, it just means a use that's adverse or to the real owner. So you don't have any interest in it. You shouldn't really be on that property, okay? Actual. That means that you are actually in possession of the property. Continuous, okay? Continuous doesn't mean that you're in there day in, day out, but are you in there in a regular basis in the way that the land would be used? Maybe it's used seasonally. If you're using it seasonally, that would be a continuous use as long as you use it every season, okay, for the 5-year period. Exclusive, you're using it yourself. You're using it exclusive to the owner. You're not permitting the owner to use it. You're using it exclusive to the rest of the public, unless the land would lend itself to public use and you're using it for a public use. So there's certain exceptions, right? And open and notorious. You're using it in a way that everybody knows you're pretending to be the owner and you're using it as though it's yours. And then you're paying the property taxes. If you do all of this for 5 years, it's your property. So you learn these kinds of frameworks and the breakdown of each of these elements of the law and how to apply the facts of different situations to these different rules of law in a systematic way so that you know whether or not this rule applies or doesn't apply, or you know whether you're in a gray area or not. And those are the kinds of things that we do here on a regular basis with our students, constantly going through these kinds of methodologies with them to ensure that they have an understanding.
We also really emphasize the practical aspect of the law. We want to teach you how to practice law. And there's a couple of ways that we do this. We really emphasize our externship or internship program. So most students, while they're here, at some point, they'll get a job someplace, a private law firm, the public sector with the DA's office, public defenders, all kinds of things, where you actually will get credit, school credit, for working in those offices. So you're getting school credit at the same time you're getting that practical experience. And for the most part, students that start externships or internships during their 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year end up working at those places. And so you're getting paid as you're going to school, getting the practical experience. At the same time, you're having a job after you finish law school. So it seems to work really well for our law school. In addition, I think almost 5 years ago, we started an immigration law clinic called the New American Legal Clinic here at the law school. So it's an in-house law clinic where we help immigrants who come to us with a legal basis for immigrating, a legal basis to be able to adjust status or become legalized here in the United States. We help them with that. So we deal a lot with domestic violence issues. We have a grant from the U.S. government to process naturalization applications. That's if someone's a legal permanent resident, they've been here for a certain amount of time, they can then become a citizen. You'd be surprised of how many people in this area have not become citizens after being legal permanent residents for many, many years. It's very important that they know that becoming a U.S. citizen lets you vote, right? So we've had much success with that. Students really enjoy that, and they learn a lot of practical skills. So I think that's another of the benefits of being the only game in town, is that if you want to do an internship with a federal judge, that's something in other cities that people are fighting for. I get a call every other semester that says, please send us students to be a clerk for this federal judge, and I think, in what other place does this happen, right? So there are many, many opportunities of federal clerkships at the Court of Appeal, many places that have, I mean, really prestigious jobs that, that are filled by our students. And so it's a very good experience, and you end up getting that experience and using that professionally, right? So going back to our academic program, I wanted to talk a bit right now about accreditation, okay? We are a committee of bar examiners from California, the California Committee of Bar Examiners accredited. That means you can sit, if you go to this law school and you graduate with the JD, you can sit for the California bar immediately after, right? So that's ABA schools in California. If you go to an ABA school, you sit for the same bar as if you go to our school, you graduate from our school. So we are California accredited. We're also Western Association of Schools and Colleges accredited. That's WASC, the acronym WASC. That means you can get federal financing. You can actually get federal loans to come to our law school, okay? We are not ABA. We're not American Bar, but it's national accreditation, American Bar Association accredited, okay? What that means is that if you graduate from our law school, you probably won't be able to sit, at least immediately, in other states for their bar exam, okay? Many states, almost all states, have their own rules with regard to non-ABA schools. They're working for a certain amount of time as a lawyer and then taking the bar exam. But I want to make certain that you know that we are not ABA accredited, so you can't sit immediately for other states' exams. Now, if you are planning on practicing in California, coming into our law school, getting a JD from our law school allows you to sit for the California bar exam. You'll get a good education, right? I talked about faculty. Our curriculum, we have our what's called our traditional program, and that's 4 years. So generally, people that have full-time jobs or family commitments, they'll do the 4-year program. In the 4-year program, you can take classes all at night. You can take a combination of day classes and night classes. You can do that generally in 4 years. There's also a 5-year option, but we encourage students to finish in 4. Okay. We also have a 3-year division, and that's you load up on more classes, of course, and you have summers off, so you can have legal jobs during the summer. 7 3 years, but it's much heavier of a load of classes, and so you're not going to want to work much at all during that, at least that first year, probably the first couple of years. You want to work in the summers, as we try to encourage people to do. There's higher admission standards for that 3-year program because, of course, the load is a lot more. If you don't meet those criteria, right, and you start in the 4-year program and you attain a certain GPA after that first year, then you can transfer into the 3-year program, right? In addition, if you start in the 3-year program and you find it's just too much, you can transfer into the 4-year program. Okay, yeah.
With the traditional program, is that will you still get the benefits of if you wanted to get involved with the college, for instance, moot court and everything else? How does that work, even though it's separate from the regular curriculum?
Yes, even if you're in the traditional program where you're a student that takes evening classes, we have an on-campus moot court class that everybody has an opportunity to participate in, and so you would have that experience. Unless you have anything else, I'm going to turn it over to Diane Steele, who's going to talk to you about admissions. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Diane Steele, and I'm the Director of Admissions here with the law school. So I've probably spoken to many of you on the phone. And you're probably wondering at this point, so who do we admit? Traditionally, a student comes to San Joaquin College of Law with a bachelor's degree completed. We also have a couple other opportunities for students to get into law school. The other is having an Associates of Arts degree with 60 units completed, or we also have a special student category. So if you do fall, and that's a student who doesn't have a bachelor's degree and doesn't have 60 qualifying units. So if you're in that category, feel free to give me a call, and I'll be happy to go over that with you in greater detail. But basically, to get into law school, you want to take the law school admissions test, and it's not a content knowledge-based test. It is a test, a reading comprehension, analytical thinking skills test, and logical reasoning skills test. The best way to prepare for this exam is by taking several practice exams over and over again until you start achieving the score that you're trying to achieve. The scores basically range from a 120 to a 180. What we like to see here at San Joaquin College of Law is a 50th percentile, which is about a 150 or better. Now, our admissions criteria are pretty student-centered. We're really trying to admit those students that we think we have a pretty good promise of success in law school. So if your GPA is a little bit lower than that 3.0 criteria, but your LSAT score is higher, you could counterbalance one or the other to get into San Joaquin College of Law. Our admissions requirements are a little bit more lenient than other law schools, yet our bar pass rate, as Professor Atkinson spoke of, is equal to or higher than many law schools. So that really shows you how much our faculty make such a strong commitment to your success. So our application, it is available on our website. There's an online application that you can launch your account simply with your email address, and then you're going to write your personal statement. That personal statement is kind of looked at as an interview or a sample of your writing ability. It's an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit better. So you want to make sure, though, that there's absolutely no grammatical errors or spelling errors, because it's also seen as a sample of your ability to write. So you submit your application, your personal statement, your LSAT, you set up your credential assembly service report, and then you order up your transcripts and let us know about your education and your GPA of 3.0 or higher, preferably. The cost of San Joaquin College of Law is based on a per unit fee. And so this year's incoming law school student paid $9.25 a unit. If you multiply that out by the total of 86 units that it takes to complete your law degree, you get your estimate of $19,887.50. So just under $20,000 is what you're going to be paying per year for our 4-year program. If you're in the 5-year program, it's around $15,000 a year. So if you're in our 3-year track, that's like $27,000 a year, something like that, roughly. But you're going to find that we're one of the most affordable law schools in the state of California. Our tuition does go up slightly, about $25 per unit annually, so you want to calculate that in when you're anticipating your total cost for law school. But as Professor Atkinson said, we are Western Association of Schools and Colleges accredited, which allows you to get the financial aid of $20,500 a year, which most of our students do borrow and invest in themselves. Any questions? Yes, please.
Isn't it strictly you start in the fall and you have to graduate in spring?
Correct. Yeah, we only start new first-year law school students, are also called 1Ls, every August. Yeah.
We do that because we know that program works, and we have a whole history of that program works, and so what works, we want to stick with it.
Yes.
Would you recommend having letters of recommendation from someone in the legal field as well?
That's a really good question. Yes. If you don't know a professor who can speak to your academic success, then perhaps you might know one of our students or one of our graduates. Those can be very good letters because they know how difficult or how challenging it is, and they know you well and could validate that they think you could be successful in law school. So those can be very good letters as well. Yes?
Is community service a factor in deciding you want, of course you want community involvement, I'm just curious as how much
Yeah.
that is weighed compared to other.
It is looked at. We look at your entire package. So they look at the whole thing, trying to make that decision if they think you're going to be successful. Now, that being said, if you don't have community service, you don't have to run out and go do a bunch of volunteer hours. Yeah. But, you know, they will look at everything, but I would really just focus on what your strengths are. If your strengths aren't community service, and focus on what your strengths are, and they'll look at everything. Yes.
Of all the applicants per year, how many do get accepted?
I will say that we admit as many people as we think will be successful. So we aren't necessarily turning people away because we don't have a seat for them. So we admit about 65 to 85 students annually. We probably have seats for about 125. Yeah, so if you demonstrate that you have a good likelihood of success, you'll be admitted. Okay. So I'll take one more question, and then I'm going to give you a few minutes break, and then we'll transition to our panelists, and we welcome more questions to our professors as well as our panelists, or any more questions about the application as well.
What's the retention rate of the students that you admitted and started with the program?
The retention rate. Can I give that one to you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because we have a pretty open admissions policy, we basically want to give students a shot. At the same time, we don't want to keep you in law school and keep taking your money if we don't think you're going to pass the bar exam. So after the first year, generally about 60% of our students move on to the second year. After you move on to the second year, 98% of those move on to the second year graduate. Okay, so there's a big cutoff after that first year. Sometimes 30%, sometimes 40% of our students get cut after that first year. Okay, but we have open admission policy, but I don't want to keep you on if I don't think you're going to pass the bar. So, but remember, if you make it through that first year, about 98% of those students actually end up graduating. If you're here and you're struggling, you have complete access to all professors. So anyone that I think has been academically excluded from this law school will tell you, if you were to ask them, you know, what happened? They say, I should have seen the professors more. I should have gone and asked. I should have done more. I should have done more. So we support you. We've started our legal methods program. You have 10 students in there. That's kind of an academic help as well. And it's hard, okay? But if you make a commitment, you can do it, right?
Is there any opportunity for a student that can sit in a class possibly?
Yeah, there are opportunities, and so I think if you contact Diane Steele, I think she could set something up for you, either in my class during the day or a class at night. And I think it would be very beneficial for you to hear from current students, right? So let's bring them in.
My name is Brittany Heinz. I'm in my 4th year. I'm graduating. I did my undergrad at Stanislaus in Turlock. I got a BA in political science, and I chose San Joaquin Law because it always had a really good reputation in the Valley, and I grew up here, and ever since I was in high school, I just kind of knew because of the reputation that I wanted to go here for my law degree.
I am Jennifer Van Zant, and I'm a 3rd year in the 3-year program graduating. I did my undergrad at Fresno State, and I got a bachelor's in criminology with a emphasis on victimology. And I chose to go to San Joaquin because my mother went here. She started when I was 5, and so I pretty much grew up in this building and kind of didn't really have another choice. So, yeah.
My name's Joshua Milton. I am a 2L, a 2nd year law student. I graduated from Fresno Pacific with a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership. I chose San Joaquin really because it's the only one around. I do have roots here. I'm married, I have a family, and so this was logistically made the most sense.
So please ask these students as many questions as you can, because this is the best opportunity to find out what it's really like to be here. So ask them questions, and then if you run out of questions, we'll start asking them questions. So.
When you originally went into law school, was the law that you were planning on going into the same type of field you were planning on going into now?
For me personally, no. I told myself I would never go into criminal law, and now I'm doing criminal defense, and I love it. So I think you'll change a couple times along the way.
I kind of stuck to my guns. Like I said, I was a criminology major, and I always kind of thought that I would go into criminal law, and I currently work in the criminal division of the Attorney General's office, so kind of stuck with it, and I'm planning to hopefully stay there forever.
I think that somewhere along the way in my head I had business law or corporate law in my mind. I can tell you after this semester that's no longer in my mind. I also, I had thought that I wanted nothing to do with criminal law, and again, I'm taking that course this semester, and that's really very interesting. Very interesting, yeah, so who knows?
So are there like electives, like if you want to go into criminal law, like where you would take elective that specifically deal with that field of law, or like how does that work?
So criminal law is a required course here, but then yeah, there are elective courses that are offered. There are some offered during the year and then more as well over the summer, and you can kind of pick and choose. There's a lot of, like, a very wide range of subjects that you can look into beyond the required courses to check out. Like I took tribal sovereign immunity last summer, or 2 summers ago, and that I just had not really any interest in whatsoever, and it actually ended up being really interesting, and I really liked it. And it makes it, the electives are really nice. It makes it a little bit less stressful because they're not bar courses. You can really enjoy them and like learn something new without freaking out.
How much hours, like let's say like I come to school 1 hour, how much per that 1 hour are you guys studying?
20?
Because that seems to be something that probably scares a lot of people, I think, is the workload, the reading, the actual work that begins out of class.
This is going to be taboo for me to answer this way. I'm not sure what the official recommended. Is it 3 hours for every hour?
3 per one.
I think.
2 to 3 hours per hour class.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe there's some of you that have a similar life situation, but I'm married, I work full-time, 3 children, 2 in high school, one's a 3rd grader. They're extremely active. We've got stuff going on all the time. So my schedule, I'm getting off work at 4:30. I'm coming home, I'm showering, getting something to eat, and then I'm driving here. And I have about a 40-minute commute from Reedley. Then you're in class till 9:30 or so. You drive home. Some people can do it. I have no energy at the end of that day. I come home, I see my wife for like 10 minutes before she's asleep, and then we repeat. So my work is on the weekends, and I'll put in at least first year, it's 10 hours a day, Saturday and Sunday, just to try to get the volume of work done, and hopefully at the end of it have some understanding of what I've just been doing. So if you're working full-time and have these other family commitments, that it's a little bit different.
Are you finding that is producing the grade that you want? I guess that's the other part of it.
I was happy with my first year of progress, and I got to tell you, you don't always feel that way. Right? It's a daily grind, and you really have to remember that on a day-to-day basis, at least for me. But coming out of that, I was really happy with the results, and that worked for me.
How does the night classes work? Are they 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week?
So the night classes are, it's Monday through Thursday, and it's 1 class per week. So if it's a criminal law, so you just have criminal law, that 1 class, 3 hours.
For the semester?
Yeah, 1 class a week, 3 hours each class. But if you're in the day program, then it'll be split up to an hour and a half, 2 days a week.
Wait, so I'm confused. So like on Monday, you go 6:30, 9:30 criminal law.
Yeah, and then on Tuesday it might be real property, 6:30, 9:30. Wednesday, evidence, 6:30, 9:30.
And you can take up to 4 classes?
It depends. It depends on the units, and every year you have to take a certain amount of units and required courses. So it just kind of depends on what year you're in. I believe the first year you take torts, civ pro, contracts, and research and writing. So you go to class 4, legal methods. So you go to class 4 nights a week.
You said that you always thought you would do corporate or business, but you kind of changed your mind. I was just curious what made you change your mind.
Well, I kind of had that thought, and really I didn't have any idea of what these things were outside of TV programs. So, hearsay, talking to people. I say that partly because I've got a final in that class in a couple weeks, and I'm kind of stressed out. But also it's a dry subject, and sometimes those are great. So, I mean, I loved contracts. Contracts was my favorite course so far, and that's pretty dry. But this is a different kind of dry, and it's just not.
What are some of the biggest obstacles you had to overcome to be successful? And I guess from the other side of this, would you do it again?
I thought that I was a good student when I started law school, and it's a very, very difficult method of studying and learning that's very different from college or from any other type of education. It's very different, and I think that initial getting used to the workload and getting used to the way of thinking and the way of testing, it's just all different. It's all new. I think that was probably the biggest obstacle. I can say, though, after I got through my first semester, I would do it over again in a heartbeat. I mean, I've absolutely loved every moment here. Finals are miserable, but that's, another story. In general, I mean, I have very, very fond memories here, and I really have enjoyed the classes. And once you get over that initial terror of starting something new and hard, it's very, very rewarding.
Do you think that your major lent itself well to law school?
I took a criminal law class when I was a criminology major at Fresno State, and I happened to have a professor who was a public defender previously, and so he actually did teach us how to brief a case, which was very, very valuable coming into law school. But in general, I'm not sure. I don't think that there are so many different backgrounds that people have when they come here, and anybody can do well, no matter what. What do you think?
I think kind of the same. I don't think it matters if you got your major in zoology or criminology. It's a totally different experience, right? When you walk into those doors of law school, it's completely different than undergrad.
Have you guys found yourself, when you guys study or prepare for exams, that you're more doing it as an individual, or they're active study groups?
Where I'm at and where I'm going, I very much alone with the studying program. Like I said, my schedule doesn't really allow for me to be here more than I'm here. There are certain projects where you're paired up with people, or you get together after hours or weekends or something for a particular project. As far as study groups go, though, no, I personally haven't participated in that. But there are groups. There are groups.
I'm about on the same page. The vast majority of the studying I do on my own, and my version of a study group is I have my two or three very close friends that we bounce stuff off of each other, or if there's something that I'm not quite understanding, bounce it off of a fellow student, and that's kind of the way I like to do it. I don't really do well studying in groups because I need to just focus. But I know a lot of people do. A lot of people meet together and study together, or go over prior exams together. And there are, the various organizations on campus, which I'm sure Brittany can tell you about, that will do, study groups and kind of test-taking tactic things on the weekends, or, after class is out, stuff like that. It's definitely available. I don't typically do it.
I did study groups a lot my first year. It really helped me out getting through my first year. After that, I kind of just studied on my own, or I'll study at school. And I think even me and Jen had a class last year together, and we would study in the same room. And at a certain point throughout the day, we might bounce a couple questions off each other just to have that extra security that you are in the right direction. But for the most part now, I do study alone.
Is there any trouble getting into classes that are scheduled for you? So signing up for the classes, are there ever any issues with that?
No, there's no issues. They have the whole, but right when you apply, they have the whole program set up and a number of students for that class. You don't even really get to pick the classes you want. They already have you set into that class. So there's no trouble getting in, and there's no wait list or anything like that once you're admitted.
Have you been through the internship part of the program, and how does it really work into your life?
I didn't intern my first 2 years. I felt like there's just too much with school. I started interning my third year, and it's working really well. I really enjoy it. At the end of the day, I'm exhausted because I'm going all day long, but it works out very good, and it's a good experience. It's really good networking. And at the school, they're in the admissions, or she's not admissions, I think she's outreach, but she'll send out emails throughout the month of different internship opportunities that are open. So it's fairly easy to get an internship when you're here.
Brittany, where are you working?
I'm at the Public Defender's Office.
And I'm also, like I said, I'm at the Attorney General's. I started as an internship over the summer, and they asked me to stay through the year, so I'm working there now. But I would agree, I think it's pretty easy to get an internship in this area. I mean, it's the only law school. Your competition is very limited, which is amazing. There's so many opportunities, and the legal community in this area, the vast majority of the attorneys went here, so they really like bringing in San Joaquin students and teaching them how to start learning the practice of law outside of school. And I'd say they're very widely available in a lot of different areas.
I think for me, because I'm in the criminal sector and I'm in court a lot, so what was helpful for me is after taking evidence, I was actually able to see the rules of evidence played out in court. So seeing it on paper and writing it down in a test is totally different than actually seeing it in the day-to-day real life. So being able to apply it was actually kind of cool also.
I started as an engineering major, and I guess now I wish I would have told myself well, maybe I could have talked to a couple of engineers, to see if engineering was for me. So
well, that's why you're here.
Yeah, that's why I'm here too. I'm kind of looking to see if you guys had a similar experience, I guess.
Well,
know this was for you.
Well, I always known I wanted to go to law school, but the good thing about having a law degree is there's so many different options. So let's say you don't want to be an attorney. You don't have to be an attorney. You can do so much with the JD. So there's so many doors that will just open in practicing law.
Like what?
You can be a teacher, you can work for the FBI, the CIA, you can just be a research attorney. I don't know. I wanted to be an attorney, so I didn't research it. So I'm not too sure off the top of my head, but there's so many different hospitals or companies that you can work for. You can do a lot, it's a Juris Doctorate, you can do a lot with that.
Yeah, and these instructors are the best. I mean, they're attorneys, they're judges, they seem to teach for the love of it. This is not a job, these are practicing people. Most of them, and that is a special connection, I think, in a lecture, where they're there, on a Wednesday night for 3 hours in the middle of a day job, don't have to be there. I think that gets translated in a lecture. I mean, you have to be prepared. If you're not, it's terrifying. With some professors, it's worse. But you must be prepared, because I know for me that was one of the most motivating factors. Was I don't want to get cold called, not know what I'm doing, not know what I'm talking about, and so you're not going to BS your way through it.
No, and there are some professors who will mark you absent if you're not prepared, or if you can't answer, you're absent from the class.
Right.
Referring to those lovely big books with all those cases in them, is that all inclusive in the tuition, or are the books a separate expense? And if so, what do those books range from? And can you rent them?
Do you want to know the answer to that question? Okay.
You can rent them, and I've ordered mine on Amazon. I didn't actually use Amazon in undergrad, but once I saw how expensive the books are here, I get mine on Amazon. I just try to order them at the cheapest. So I'll have highlights and writing all throughout the books, but you can get them on Amazon usually under $150.
I have a question about now the professors, are they readily available? Do they keep office hours that are?
I've had no trouble accessing any professors. Email is always available, and I don't think I've ever taken one up on it, but the invitation to meet or to help has always been there. So they seem to be very accessible.
I've walked into Professor Atkinson's office about 700 times since I've been here, and he's always there, and and that's the general. I mean, you can walk into any professor's office here and they'll sit down and help you. I mean, it's a very open environment. Nobody's like, I mean, they're all here all the time. So if they have a minute to help you, they'll help you. We all had her, Professor Goodrich. She will spend about 20 hours in her office with you if you need her to. So yeah, it's very, very open.
This is a slightly personal question, but the first time taking the LSAT, were you happy with your score, or did you need to take it again?
I took it once, and I was happy with it.
What do you think made you successful on that test? Did you do practice tests? Did you go to the law school LSAT training camp?
Again, this is not a model answer, but I actually did have an LSAT prep book that was, from 4 years prior when I first started thinking about seriously going to law school, like this is going to happen. That was really helpful in just getting the outline of the LSAT and what that looked like, what the sections were, sort of how it was weighted, and that part of it was helpful. The analytical reasoning part of that was probably the most useful for me. Just getting to understand how to chart and diagram things and to work through that. That's the part I think that took the practice for me.
How does the LSAT compare with the actual bar?
Not anything even related.
The LSAT,
mini bar?
The LSAT's not even comparable to law school. The LSAT and law school honestly has nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, the LSAT is more has more to do with the skills, the skill set required to, and that's even a generous statement, because I did like slightly below average on the LSAT, and I was totally fine with that because the logic was like math to me, and I hated it.
Did you find that all the practice tests that you did for the LSAT were very similar to the actual LSAT that you took?
I did kind of the same thing that Josh did. I had just a practice book with sample tests in it, and I did a couple all the way through just under the time constraints to kind of get used to it. And they're all, the questions are meant to test the same thing. So obviously the facts changed, the names changed, whatever. But it's a very similar structure, and I that's all I did to prepare for the LSAT was I did some practice tests and went through and really looked at the right answers and to understand why they were right, and that was good for me. And everybody's different. I mean, I know people who have taken classes and that helps them. I didn't feel like I needed to do that, but that's the most helpful thing about doing the practice test is just seeing the kind of structure of the questions and getting used to them, because they all kind of look the same.
Yeah.
What would be the biggest piece of advice you'd give to us prospective law school students?
Mine would be time management. Make sure you have a good plan going in. Just time management for your study, for your social life, staying healthy. Just have everything down to a schedule.
And I'm gonna piggyback on that. One of the things that I think is incredibly important is taking care of yourself, because my first semester I had to be talked off a ledge a few times. I'm not gonna lie. It was very stressful, and I didn't make enough time for myself. I wasn't, I just was incredibly stressed. And since then, I require myself every single night when I'm done studying, I watch an hour of TV. Like, that's my rule. You have to take care of yourself, because if you're not physically, emotionally, mentally healthy, you cannot do this. Like, you have to take care of yourself.
Life will change, when you go into that, it will change. And, there were times driving home at night afterward where I'm really thinking, why am I doing this? This is not something that, this is torturous. But I'm serious, but from that you learn, you have to really appreciate the small successes, because they do come. For me, part of that is to be among some of the brightest people around is really a great feeling. And then when you've had some of those successes, when some of the concepts click and you start to understand these things, and then just kind of understanding the company that you're in, and that for me is rewarding.
I love it. I think it's amazing. And I really like that if there's an area of law that interests me, I can go research it and know about it. Like, it's awesome. Like, you know, there's really, really important skills that you get as a law student that are not just applicable to law school. I mean, it really, really expands your abilities in other areas of life and in general.
How easy or how hard it is to pass the classes here? And what happens if you just can't pass that class?
I'm gonna bow out of this one.
Well, it's set up where basically your final is 100% of your grade, or maybe 95% of your grade, depending on if they count participation points or they give you a quiz or something throughout the semester. So you have one test that's your whole grade. So you have to just basically do pretty well on that test, and it's difficult, it's tough, but if you've been staying on top of the cases all semester long and outlining and taking notes and studying all semester long and really stayed on top of it, then you'll be good. But if you wait until the last minute, like, you know, we all procrastinated undergrad and try to wake up at 5 o'clock that morning of a test and study, you're not passing.
Cannot do it.
Mm-mm.
It is impossible to do
you're not
that
passing.
in law
You
school.
have to study all semester long.
I'm gonna start to wrap things up a little bit because we're out of time. I just want to ask the panel if they can all individually answer what they love the most about being at SJCL.
Again, I would just reiterate just the company, the people that you're among. I mean, it's a class of just a whole bunch of really bright people, and you go through a journey. I'm on the very first part of my journey, and these folks are toward the end of theirs, but you know, you go through these things with people. I mean, you're terrified together. Everybody's, you know, you're successful together. You know, the professors and the quality of the instruction is something that I really think is great.
I feel very much at home here. I feel so comfortable going to any professor or any staff member, anybody, to talk about whatever problem I'm having, anything. I mean, it's always open and available. And, you know, like Josh said, the people you're going to school with are incredibly smart and talented. I've made some of my best friends here, and you can laugh together and cry together and, you know, pick each other up off the floor, whatever you gotta do. But it's a really, really positive environment to be in. I know, you know, I've had a lot of friends who have gone to big ABA schools, and I work with a lot of people who have gone to large schools, and it's an environment that you cannot find in a large school. I mean, it's very tight-knit, it's very small and very family-like, and I love it.
And probably piggyback off what they said, you know, when you walk in, you feel welcomed. You're so stressed out being here that you don't want to walk into a place and you're on pins and needles and you're afraid of anyone or to ask anyone questions, but it's not like that here. You know, you come in, you're stressed out, but everyone's so supportive, and you meet friends that literally turn into your family because you're with these people 3, 4, 5 days a week. So it's just probably just a whole experience, the environment, and the people that you meet.
Thank you very much, panel.
Sweet.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of San Joaquin College of Law Today, presented by San Joaquin College of Law, a nonprofit law school committed to educational excellence and community service. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the position or views of San Joaquin College of Law. This program has been produced in conjunction with the Community Media Access Collaborative. We invite you to join us in the future as we explore issues and events within the law school which are of general interest as well. For more information about San Joaquin College of Law, please visit our website at www.sjcl.edu or call 559-323-2100.